In a previous video, we took a look at an example of creating a texture in Photoshop that would have an alpha channel that we could use as transparency. And the way that we accomplished that was by masking out, in this case the leaf, the area that we want to be transparent, going to channels and then adding an alpha channel. And here is my alpha channel. The white areas will be opaque and the black area will be transparent. And now that my document has this alpha channel here, I can export it out in a format that has an alpha channel, format such as Target. And then go to Maya and apply it as a texture. And then once I'm in Maya, I can create a material using that texture that we just created in Photoshop. And by applying it to the color channel, and then applying it to my mesh, I get this nice leaf using transparency. As you can see, here's the actual geometry, but the rest of this area that was black in Photoshop appears transparent here. In fact, if we were to take a object such as this sphere, you'll see that we can see it behind the leaf. Now, similar to this concept of an alpha channel, we can also use in Photoshop what are called masks. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. Now, masks are applied to your layers, which are found here. Currently, we only have one layer, our background layer. I'm going to create a new layer now. And we'll go ahead and just fill this layer in with a solid color, in this case red. Now, you all are already aware that you can select your eraser tool, and by erasing whatever's on that layer, you'll see what is behind that layer. Masks are going to give us some of that same functionality, but in a less destructive manner and in a way that's going to be much more powerful for your workflow. And to demonstrate what I mean by that, let's go ahead and create a third layer. And this time we'll fill the color in, we'll fill the layer in, let's say, with yellow. Now, instead of erasing on this layer to get what is behind it to show, I'm going to create a mask. And to do so, make sure you have your layer selected, and then click on this button here. This is the button that will create a mask on your layer. And if I do that, you'll notice that it's created this this mask right here, right next to the color layer, let's say. We've got this mask. Now, if I want to take a look at the mask by itself, I can press down the Alt key on my keyboard and then left click on the mask. And now we're looking at just the mask. Now, let's take a look at what happens if I paint in this mask here. You can see that the background of the mask is white, indicating opaque. And remember then that black is going to be transparency. Now, if we want to see this mask, how it's interacting with our yellow layer here, I'll once again press Alt on my keyboard and then left mouse click. And here you'll see that the areas that I drew with black have masked out that area of this layer, of the yellow. In fact, I can continue drawing on this and bringing out more of what is behind this layer. Now, it's important to note that I can continue working on my mask here and mask out some of these areas here. But you really do have to make sure that you actually have the mask selected. If instead I click on this part of the layer here and then I draw on it, I'm actually drawing on the color layer itself. Notice this. I'm going to draw a line across this image here. You'll notice that we're not seeing it here because that area is masked out. Now, what happens if I, let's say, continue working on my mask? I've clicked on my mask now, and instead of drawing black to mask out, I draw white on there, and you'll see I'll bring that area of the drawing back in. This is why it's so much more powerful than simply erasing, because it's non-destructive. Everything that you have on that layer is still there, it's simply masked out. So also remember that if you want to look at just the mask by itself, press down the Alt key and then click on the mask, and then you'll see just the mask. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just fill this in with white, making it all opaque again. Because we'll take a look at a couple other things with these masks. So let's try this. I'm going to draw black here, and then I'll make it a dark gray, and I'm just going to progressively make this gray lighter and lighter as I make these marks. And I will also make a gradient here. So this is our mask. Let's take a look at it when I press Alt and then left mouse click on the mask again so that we can see the color that I have applied here. Now you remember I drew these yellow, I filled the area in with yellow and then I drew these black marks on here. Here you can see the transparency. Where it's black, it's entirely transparent. And as we get these grays that get lighter and lighter, they become more and more opaque. You can also see that here on the gradient that I created. Where it's black, it's completely transparent, and then over the length of this gradient, as it goes toward white, it becomes more and more opaque. I'm going to get rid of these two layers, and we'll still continue exploring this idea of masks, but using this leaf. And what I'm going to do this time is duplicate the layer. And let's go ahead and go to Image, Adjustment, Hue Saturation. We can adjust the hue of this leaf, or even colorize it, make it more saturated, and then choose a nice color for it. Maybe in this case we'll keep this red. Maybe I'll lighten it up a little. No, I don't think I'll lighten up. I'll keep it like that. Let's duplicate it again. Duplicate this layer that I just created. And we'll do another color shift on it as well. Perhaps going more towards the yellows. Now I will go ahead and apply a mask to this top layer, and we'll start painting on it. Remember to make sure that you're actually working on your mask itself. I'm going to select my paintbrush tool, and we can start masking out some of this layer here. And you can see then that what we get is what is behind it, which is in this case the red leaf. And again, remember that if you want to actually look at the mask by itself, press down Alt and the left mouse click on the layer itself, and here is what I've drawn, here is what I've masked out. Now we're going to try something else. I'm going to go ahead and just fill this area in with white. And once again, we'll try a gradient on this. So here's our gradient, and if I press Alt and then left mouse click, here is my leaf with the gradient on it, and you can see it's going from this yellow from the layer that we're currently working on, and then it gets masked out and progressively gets redder and redder. In fact, we could draw different gradients in here, or we could go in the opposite direction, or we could do something more, rather than vertical, we could do something more horizontal. We could even try some of these other types of gradients. In fact, there's a lot of different things that we can do on our masks. I'm going to do one of these render clouds on it. Let's see what that looks like. So I'll press Alt, left mouse, and you can see now that it's applied this cloud filter to it as a mask. And what we can do then is have some fun with that by perhaps adjusting it. And if we want to take a look at the mask by itself, again, I'll press Alt and left mouse click, and here is my mask. And of course, I can come over to my layer here, and if I hide it, we'll see the original leaf behind. I'll show it again, but we can come in here and we can continue working on this layer as well. I can come in here, for instance, and continue working on it by doing color shifts of its hue, shifting the hue, increasing the saturation, bringing the saturation down, and so on, making it lighter, making it darker. We'll go ahead and try shifting it maybe more towards a blue color. So to quickly recap, let's go ahead and create one more example here. I'm going to duplicate my background layer one more time, drag it to the top. If you want to create a mask for your layer, remember that you simply select your layer and then click on the mask button here. that will create a mask, which we can see we have here. If you want to actually look at the mask by itself, you can press Alt, left mouse click on it, and you'll see just the mask. You can then do all sorts of different effects, such as drawing on it, or any other tool that you're familiar with in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and just do another cloud filter here, and maybe make some quick adjustments to it. If we don't want to look at the mask by itself anymore, simply press Alt, left mouse click, and you'll see what we have here. You can see what we've masked out. So there it is. That's masks in Photoshop. I recommend playing around with these masks. They're very powerful, and when you get the hang of them, you're going to be able to use them to do lots of things. Uh, that'll give you much more flexibility than simply erasing areas away that you don't want.